Hello and welcome to the most recent demo of the Exhibits 2020 work cycle. Um, Today is a very exciting demo because we get to demonstrate the upgrade of our exhibits.stanford.edu production instance of Spotlight to the latest version, both alpha version of Spotlight that has been released this morning, as well as the latest version of Blacklight 7. This has been the stuff that we've been demoing for the past several weeks in our stage environment is now been able to get out, released, and in our production instance. So this is a culmination of many weeks of work of everybody on the team. Kind of just briefly, I'd like to show what will hopefully look very identical to what you've seen before in our production instance, because one of our goals was definitely to try to make this, to make the before and after this update as close to each other as possible, albeit some improvements and some changes around the app. So just kind of poking around, wanting to show the exhibits that we have and the content within them and the pages that are displayed have a lot of improvements in them, a lot of things that have been held on to in order to make them easier to be done while we're upgrading our UI is now available to us. So you'll probably notice a lot of spacing and alignment improvements all around the app that are probably too numerous to go through in detail in the demo, but do offer folks the opportunity to go and look around and poke around the sites and see the kind of the new updated UI. And I'll hand it over to Jack to talk about some of the features that are now also available to users now that we are updated to this latest version.
Thanks, Jesse. So I'll just mention a couple of features that we've been working on that have also now been shipped to production that users will start to see. One thing is that in Spotlight, home pages, so exhibits that have home pages where date range has been enabled, users are now going to be able to use the date range from the home page. Previously, this wasn't showing up, and so I can now use the date range slider on the home page to refine my results. And one more thing to call out is, so this is an exhibit that's not yet published, but we can see now that we've added Spanish translations for some of the UI labels, so that Spanish is now enabled for curators to create multilingual exhibits using Spanish as well. So with that, I want to send it on over to Jennifer to talk about some accessibility changes and updates.
Thank you, Jack. So, okay, I'm getting an echo. I'm going to start that again. Thanks, Jack. I want to, so one of the goals in this work cycle was to improve the accessibility of exhibits overall. Particularly, we wanted to remove the obstacles that prevent users of assistive technologies, like people who use a keyboard instead of a mouse, or people who use a screen reader to enhance what they see visually, or who are non-sighted altogether and use a screen reader to do everything. So we have a range of people using different levels of assistive technology, and we wanted to remove the obstacles that prevent those people from discovering or understanding important information in exhibits, or just generally having a rich experience in the exhibits environment. So we started by running some automated accessibility tests on some key exhibits and on the home page, and followed that up with manual testing for keyboard and screen reader support. One of the baseline tests on a key exhibit reported 460 errors, which is not great. And you'll see that that has so far generated 14 tickets, 12 of which are closed. And the reason that it doesn't generate 460 errors is that the errors fall into a few basic categories. So one of the key ones was missing alternate text for images. And that's critical in a situation, well, exhibits is a very image-rich environment. And in a situation like the search results, where the images here are also links, it's really critical that the image be perceivable by alternate technology. So if I were to use my keyboard to tab to this link, the screen reader at this point would tell me unlinked image, or image with no alternate text, or unidentified image, or it might read the file name. But then it would say it's a link and there's no link text. So I don't know where this thing is going to go. Then I tab again and I get to a text link that takes me to the actual item. So that was an issue that we needed to resolve for a number of reasons. One is we don't want the screen reader saying unidentified image all over the place. Second, links need to indicate where they're going to go. And third, in this very specific instance, we're unnecessarily generating 2 keyboard links for each title. So in order to go to Chocolate Heads, there are 2 things that you can click on each record. So so the way that we addressed this was sort of multiply. One is we made sure that every image had valid alternate text, even if that is null text. That is, we in some cases decided that it was better to consider that the image was decorative and hide it from assistive technology than to try to describe it when it is already described on the page elsewhere. So that was one aspect. The second aspect was if an item is a link, if an image is a link, it has to have valid link text. So we've made sure that images that are links on their own have valid link text. And in this specific instance, we actually suppressed the keyboard access to the image. So now I'm going to tab in the same way that I did. This is the new version that we just released. Now that I tab, I'm going strictly to each individual title and skipping over the images, but the images are still clickable with the mouse. So that's sort of multiple layers of improvements that make things easier for screen and keyboard user, or screen reader and keyboard users, without changing what happens for mouse users. And I think that's a change that happened at the Blacklight level, so it'll affect all Blacklight applications that use these thumbnails. And there are a number of things that we were able to sort of resolve upstream. Another of the common issues was invalid and missing ARIA attributes, and particularly one really common one was the little image on the search button up here was misidentified. The ARIA role and label for it was misidentified, so it wasn't accessible to a screen reader. They couldn't see what that button said, and it threw errors in the reporting feature. So that's another thing that was fixed in Blacklight that will then fix it for everything. Another piece that was broken in Blacklight was that the ARIA attribute that indicates that these little sidebar facets are expanded or collapsed was on the wrong element, so it wasn't being read to the screen reader at all. Now it's on the correct element. Other things. Oh, the landmarks were, so ARIA and HTML5 uses landmarks to create sort of a picture of the structure of the page for assistive technology. So, and here's the previous version. Here's just a page in the older version, where you'll see there's a couple of landmarks outlined in red, and some of them have no name. There's navigation without a name. There's search form without a name. But there are areas of the screen, like there's a navigation element here that's not the breadcrumb strip is not identified. There's a missing navigation area at the top, and so on. So we completed the set of landmarks so that all of the content in the page is within a landmark. The landmarks are identified and named where they need to be. So because there are multiple types of navigation, there's a navigation utilities, there's a navigation for the exhibit, there's a navigation breadcrumb, and every element on the screen is, every element on the page is within a landmark. We also had a little error with the SearchWorks, with the Stanford and Stanford Libraries and Stanford University footers, where we had two landmarks that were identical. That was a rule break, and now that's been resolved. I think that's the majority of the issues. As of this demo, there's still work to be done, but I should say that the same automated report that gave 460 errors now returns just 63. So we're going to continue poking at those, and most of them, in fact, are in the embedded viewer that we use in SearchWorks or in exhibits, and those will be resolved by work in the embedded viewer itself. And so, so we'll continue to make progress on exhibits accessibility, even when we're working on other applications. I think that's it.